Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Work From Home Show. I'm Naresh Vissa with Adam Schrader. Shout out to all our homies, homeboys, homegirls, home trends, all the work from homers out there. Today we have Marni Jameson on the show. She's a nationally syndicated home columnist and the #1 New York Times bestselling author of Downsizing The Family Home, What to Save, What to Let Go. Also author of the new book, What to Do with Everything You Own to Leave the Legacy You Want, from the Heart Estate Planning for Everyone, whatever your financial situation. Marni Jameson, welcome to the Work From Home Show.
Well, thank you for having me.
I want to talk about your new book, What to Do with Everything You Own to Leave the Legacy You Want. I think the most important chapters in the book deal with wills and trusts. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about wills and trusts and also the intricacies of them once family. There have been multiple movies made about wills, really. In fact, I just saw one last night with Jennifer. It was called like Murder Mystery. And most of these movies are the same. It's like some old man has a bunch of billions of dollars and then he mysteriously dies and then the family just starts fighting over who gets the money or the assets because he didn't have a will, or maybe the will was not properly written by the attorney. So why don't you talk about this a little?
Wow. Well, this wasn't my idea, and it's interesting. A publisher approached me and saw my downsizing books and said, and had this idea. It was also subtitled, working title was The Ultimate Downsizing Guide. Because at the end of the day, when we all cross that finish line, you can't take it with you, right? So this book is about having all the dominoes fall in the direction you want them to when you cross that finish line. And again, with the pandemic, everyone knows it could be any time, you don't know. And it's not to be morbid, it's to be organized and not leave a bunch of people fighting behind you. So the important thing about this book is that it's not for rich people. It can be, but it's really for people of any means. A will is an important document to have. People say, oh, I know I don't have enough assets, or I don't have, it's not complicated enough, or whatever. But you really, especially if you have kids, you really need to plan for what's going to happen to them and your pets. Who's going to take care of them? How is that going to work out? Where are your documents, by the way? And how does one access to them? Who is your representative? So these are important things. I use the analogy in the book of a magic funnel. And I think how this book is different from other estate planning guides is that I don't stop at the paperwork, which is important, the wills and the trusts, which we can go back to, but I talk about everything, not just your money and your real estate and your investments, but your collections, your furniture, your jewelry, your paintings, your cars, everything, and just putting it in a magic funnel and having it come out the other side as liquidated as potentially cash, and then distributed exactly the way you want. So do you want it to be divided among your 4 kids evenly? Okay. Do you want it to all go to your spouse first and then your 4 kids? That's pretty typical. But what if you want to spin off 10% for a really important cause to you? An animal rescue or an art museum or a children's camp that helps kids who have cancer, or whatever is meaningful, your school that you wouldn't be here but for your education. Maybe you just want to give a little bit to them and make sure that that's covered. And then you really can have a legacy into perpetuity, because if it's well managed and well designed, even people of modest means can make a big difference. I have an example of a woman who lived in the Ozarks. She was single and a school teacher, and her total assets amounted to about $65,000 when she died. Not a lot. It was basically her house. And she donated it to the community foundation and said, if this can help kids with scholarships, I would like that. And that's how she left everything. And they took that $65,000 and invested it and turned it into a $100,000 annuity. And every year it spins off $2,000 into perpetuity. There's no end in sight as to when this will stop giving $2,000 scholarships every single year, long, long, long after this woman died. So those are the kinds of things with a little bit of forethought, you can make a long-lasting impact on not just your family, but on the world.
That sounds good, but it also sounds, you said it was for all people. That sounds expensive. So how much are you talking about needing to spend to set something, not like giving the house to a college, but in terms of setting everything up so that everything's going where you want it to go? Like, how much are you looking at that costing?
It can be next to nothing. I mean, if you want you can do your own will for free. I recommend at least getting it from LegalZoom. You can get a document. It's from Zoom, Legal Docs it's called. You can get for $89, you can get a will and you can print it out and fill it out. And it depends on the state in which you live. You might need to have it notarized. You might need to have it witnessed. You absolutely need to sign it. If you fill it out and leave it on your computer unsigned, it's worthless. I go through this in the book, but you don't have to. It would not hurt you to go to see an attorney for whatever that hourly fee is. Maybe it's just $100. It doesn't have to be a lot for him or her just to review it and make sure you've covered your bases and make sure tell you what the laws are in your state for it to be valid, and then make sure it's in a place where people can find it. You might just want to leave it, a copy with that attorney, so you can put in your file, my will is with, Joe Davis or whoever your attorney is, and have it there. But that's not an expensive thing. Now, when you have more assets and your life gets more complicated, in my case, we have 5 kids between us, and one of my husband's children is a stepchild from his first wife, and now some of his kids have kids. It gets complicated. So I have we have trust. We don't have a huge amount of assets, but I have a trust for my 2 daughters. He has a trust for his 3 kids. We have a trust together that'll get divided among all 5 eventually. But for us, that whole process cost about $5,000.
Yeah, after we got married and my wife got pregnant, we looked into, I have a financial advisor, financial planner, I have an accountant, and a few other services that I use. And one of them recommended that because we were having a kid, they said you should look into creating a will. So we talked to this highly recommend, probably one of the top 5 will attorneys or the legal lawyer company in the world, or at least in the country. And yeah, it was quite expensive. I think it was like $5,000 up front, and then an annual management maintenance fee to update the will every year.
Oh my!
Of hundreds of dollars. And we were at the time, we're both like 30 and 31 years old. So I ran the math and I was like, we're gonna have to do this for until we both die, which is gonna be like hopefully 60 to 70 years from now. And so I said at the time, this was pre-pandemic, I said, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some online player, some kind of technology that comes up. And at the time there were online players, but nobody had really come out to the front of the pack. Like no one became that Uber or that Facebook. So I said, I'm pretty sure within the next 10 years, there will be some kind of online legal will writer, or something that'll just make it so much easier, so you don't have to go to a person who's going to charge you $5,000. And there have, just since that happened 2 years ago, I've heard advertisements on the radio, on podcasts. I've seen commercials on TV, Instagram ads. They're starting to pop up, and so within the next 5 years, we'll certainly move forward. But I just wanted to share this short anecdote with the audience, because this is something that people in my family who are in their 60s and 70s, they haven't done this yet, and they have no idea where to start. And the first thing that anyone will tell them is, oh, just go see a lawyer and he'll do everything. And I think that's the wrong way to go. If you are pressed for time, then go see a good lawyer who's going to do a good job. But there are some online, and I don't think LegalZoom is the answer. I think there's going to be something that comes up that's even better than LegalZoom. That option is there. They're probably the most well-known online legal technology company. But yeah, I just wanted to share this with our listeners so that they're not completely lost when it comes to writing their wills.
I think your point is excellent. I obviously am not an attorney, and I'm not an estate planner, but I am a journalist, and I have written for the Los Angeles Times and the Orlando Sentinel for many years, and I'm syndicated, as you know, in 30 papers every week. So I know how to ask questions, and I tapped the very, very best minds, some of the very best estate attorneys in the country. I interviewed for my book and ran everything by them. And if I didn't understand it, I couldn't write it. So I made it so if I could get it, you can get it. And I have lists of things little checklists of things to pull together when you go to that first meeting. I have a whole glossary. I didn't even know that some of the vernacular. I'm like, what? Help me out here. What does that mean? So I think that my goal was to help people save a lot of money in a bill-by-the-hour environment by having everything at their fingertips, pulled together, organized, and an understanding of the terms before they go to that meeting. So a meeting that could last 5 hours ends up taking 45 minutes. So that's one thing that I think could be valuable. To your point, though, I do think there are online documents that you can fill out. If nothing else, it's an excellent start. It gets you thinking, and it's something that you can have written out, printed out, signed. And over half of the people in America don't have this document. In fact, I think it's over half of the people die without a will. And what that means is that the state gets to choose what happens to everything you own.
It's terrible.
Die intestate. It's a term for the state will decide how your assets get divided. And I don't really want to have that happen.
It's yeah. When I was doing my research on trusts and wills, I actually read an entire book, and it's a nightmare. Once the assets go into the state's hands, it's what's called probate. They go into probate, and there's no telling what's going to happen. And each child, let's say, who wants a piece of these assets is going to have to hire their own attorneys. So you're making your children spend all this money in legal fees, waste all this money in legal fees, and then they fight it out. And then the government, they just want to tax as much as they can because it's now going under their jurisdiction. And so it's a terrible situation to be in. And that's why I started looking into wills and trusts and all these things, because I read about the horror stories of families who built up, decent amount of wealth, and they worked hard, and then they died, and then the money just either was pissed off to lawyers or in taxes or to the government.
I have horror stories in my book that share exactly that, and followed up with how to bulletproof your estate document so this doesn't happen, and to create a will that is not going to get contested. Because I was surprised and I guess maybe naively that how many families this completely destroys once somebody, a big breadwinner in the family dies and people are left fighting. It's just horrific. And
just turn on the TV. Look at Michael Jackson. Look at Anna Nicole Smith. Look at any of these celebrities who die. Yeah, just throw a dart at the board and just read those stories.
Yeah. Yeah, it's preventable. And I think realistically, people don't want to think about their death. What if, that's not a fun thing to do. But if you if you think I'm going to be dead a lot longer than I'm going to be alive, okay, there's probably a fact. And there's, I could leave this world really, really neatly. And it's being as organized about when you die as when you live. And it just doesn't leave a mess, and it leaves loving, kind feelings in your wake where people aren't squabbling. There's another really important point that I learned along the way is to write a letter along with your will about, like, this is what I was thinking letter. It's not a legal document. It's just something for the family to understand why maybe one child got a little more than another one. Maybe there's a grandchild who's disabled, and you want to give, and that person can't work and they have to stay home with the disabled child versus someone who's got a great, neurosurgery career or something. So, a little bit of that, so everyone isn't left thinking, oh, I knew she loved you more,
Yeah, it's all really, really good and important stuff to think about. If you really love your children and your grandchildren, really by the time your will goes into effect, you probably have grandchildren, maybe even great-grandchildren. If you care about the legacy that you're leaving behind and the family legacy, then you will go ahead and write a will, get it properly done. The website that I was or that I heard about, which many people recommended, is called trustandwill.com. Trustandwill.com, and just clicking on that website, trustandwill.com, they have plans for less than, you could do a full family will for like less than $500. The plans start at $89, but I'm sure there's other add-ons that you'll have to pay for, but you could get it all done online in about an hour. It depends on how much you own, right? The more things you own, the more stuff you're going to have to type in. But let's just say you're just a guy like me, an average person in his 30s. It's going to take you less than an hour to set this up. And to put in that 1 hour of time right now, and maybe just another 30 minutes a year, every year moving forward until you die, you're going to save your family. You're going to save your great-grandchildren.
Yes. It's so important. And it doesn't even have to be necessarily every year. I have a list of things that when you need to revisit your estate plan, and it's when you have another child, when you have maybe a death in the family, when you remarry or don't, or if something happens there, or you get a new house. So there are things that trip. Oh, okay, I need to put that in the trust, or I need to add this or take that away. But those a lot of it can ride for some time. And again, print it out and sign it and make sure somebody knows where it is. That's important.
Yeah, and Adam and I are both real estate investors, so we own property, quite a bit of property compared to the average person in the United States. And imagine you own all this property. Let's say you own 30 pieces of property, whether it's farmland or single-family homes, apartments, etc. Let's say you own 30. That's quite a bit. And you don't write a will, and you die. And guess what's going to happen?
Yes,
those 30 properties, your children don't. First off, they're not going to agree. If you have 4 children and 30 properties, well, that's not an even split, right, Adam? So there exactly. Could be some. So there could be some fighting there, but that's not how it works. The government's just going to take it over, and what they're going to do is they're going to say, you have this deadline to sell all 30 properties, and you must sell them by this deadline. And so now all of a sudden, you go from having this tax-favored asset class to just trying to get it off your hands as much as possible and taking anything for it. And then you're paying taxes on top of the proceeds of the sale, or not you, but whoever the what do you call it, the administrator or children. I don't even know how that's going to work out, but they're going to pay taxes on all of that because you've converted those assets into cash. So you're going to pay the real estate capital gains tax plus any estate taxes that are required, and then that's on top of the ridiculous legal fees. So don't do that to great-grandchildren.
And your
And that
tenants.
is, classic. I mean, that is definitely a case for a trust, when you can put it all in an entity that it's separate from you, and it's protected by all this. It's not public, and it's not going to go through probate. And you certainly have to take care of whatever liens might be on these properties, or your estate will. But it's going to be much better handled than a free-for-all with the government, because I like, not making a choice is making a choice. Not making a choice, not doing this, is deciding to let the government do it for you, and that is a choice.
It sounds like a disaster.
Yeah.
I'll just let the government do it.
Yeah, that's not going to be in anyone's favor but theirs. So, I think it's I think it's very important. You don't think it's beyond your reach to be able to get some semblance of documentation together to prepare your family and your heirs for a death if it happens. And if you have young kids, this is also life insurance, making sure that everyone's taken care of. And that's not that expensive, but it's important to have in place, because if that sad day comes, you want to make sure that everyone's taken care of, and people will remember, Dad looked out for us. It's important.
Yeah, and I hear all the time from people, even my age, and unfortunately people who are my parents' age, and they say, "Oh, you know what? If I die, I'm out of here. I mean, you guys, I'm dead. Like, I can't do anything. So if there's drama or whatever, you guys just work it out yourselves. I'm dead. I'm gone." And unfortunately, there are a lot of people like that. And if you're listening to this episode right now, don't be one of those people. The people who you love the most are not going to like you for doing that.
And again, it's what to do with everything you own to leave the legacy you want. And is that what you want your legacy to be? Do you want to leave bitterness and chaos in your wake, or do you want to leave thoughtfulness and order? My parents were modest means, but I remember I was in my 20s, and my mom handed me this little blue plastic folder, and she said, "Here's our will and our trust, and our funeral arrangements." I'm like, "What the heck? What are you doing? You're not leaving me, are you?" And like, no. And she was only in her 60s or so, whatever. But and they lived into their 90s, but they had, they treated this very matter-of-factly, and there was no issue. My brother and I, all of this was very peacefully divided, and all the dominoes fell the way they wanted them to, because they had a plan. And I don't know any other way to do it now. Now I know as much as I do. I'm so grateful that everything is in place, if that day comes, and it will. I plan to live till I'm 100, but when my day comes, I hope that everything falls into place, and I've done what I can to get it there.
I'm a huge proponent of whole life insurance, life insurance in general. So we've got that taken care of. And to wrap this part of the interview up, the only thing that we know for sure is that we're going to die. I hate to break this news to you, but you're going to die. I'm going to die. I'm not trying to be morbid. I'm not trying to, scare people, but it's just a fact of life. There is not some secret potion that's hit the market and keeping you from dying. It is going to happen. And many people, they get upset when I tell them that. They find it offensive. But this is not a time to be afraid. This is a time to, like you said, to take care of your family, to take care of your children and your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and your family name, because you are going to die.
And you don't know when. I think that's the wild card is, people sometimes think they're tempting fate by doing this. Oh, that just means I'm, heading to that door, right? The exit ramp. No, there was an example. One of the estate attorneys gave me of a couple who were in their 50s. They got married and they had a blended family, and they went off on a honeymoon to Germany, and they were going to get all their wills and trusts and everything taken care of when they got back. Well, they were on an Autobahn and driving too fast, and they had an accident and both died. And they were able to determine that the husband died before the wife, and therefore the wife's kids got everything. And the husband's kids said, "Well, you guys are going to share that with us." You know? So, it's not what you expect, but it can leave a mess behind. And that wasn't what they planned, for sure. But that's what happened. So I talk about, I opened the book saying, I know. When I was a girl, I thought only 3 out of 10 people died. And then eventually I thought maybe it was 7 out of 10, but not me and not my family, not anyone I knew. Right. And then eventually I'm like, no, maybe everyone dies. It's a slow realization. But, I think about just pretend, you're going to walk out the door tomorrow and that meteor is going to hit you. Are your ducks in a row? And I think that's, that Audubon trip is very sobering, especially, it gets complicated if you have ex-wives and, like the big mistake is whatever's in your 401k and you put whoever's your beneficiary, if you forget to change that when you get remarried, that trumps any will that you have. You could say everything goes to my new wife, but if your beneficiary is still your ex-wife, game over. She gets the 401k. So you got to get it together. And it's a little bit of a hassle, a little bit of a paper chase, but it's completely worth it for the peace of mind and the legacy you're going to leave for those behind you.
Absolutely. This has been a truly, truly fascinating interview. I'm glad we were able to do 2 episodes on this, not 1, but 2 episodes. So we got to knock out downsizing and we got to knock out wills and trusts. So that's Marni Jameson, nationally syndicated home columnist, #1 New York Times bestselling author of Downsizing The Family Home, and also the bestselling author of the new book, her latest book, What to Do with Everything You Own to Leave the Legacy You Want, from the heart estates planning for everyone, whatever your financial situation. Marni, thank you so much for joining us on the Work From Home Show. The website is marnijameson.com. That's JAMESON. JAMESON, marnijameson.com. Any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners or anything else you want to promote about anything that we talked about?
It's just been such a pleasure. I think the most, if I could have a motto, people say, oh, you're all about getting rid of things and, looking at no, I'm about living a great life now and being ready for the future, letting go of the past and having a beautiful present. And I think if you can look through your lens, and that is your lens as you look through your life and your home and your belongings, and you make sure everything is accounted for and you're managing your stuff and everything's heading for the corner pocket when your day comes. I just think there's an art to living, and that's a big part of it. And I like to think that I'm aspiring toward that and maybe helping others get there too.
Marni Jameson, thank you so much for joining us on the Work From Home Show. To all our listeners, check us out at workfromhomeshow.com. Leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you use. Our email is hello@workfromhomeshow.com. If you want to get in touch with us, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. And until next week, keep on working from home.